Welcome back, everybody. John Aravosis here with Cliff Schechter and Mary Trump. Woo!
Hey, we're all here in different directions.
Welcome back.
How's it going, Mary?
Hi, guys. It's great to be back. Nobody's allowed to ask me how it's going anymore because I don't know.
Well, it's going a little better, I guess, right? I mean,
well, we haven't had you on since he was in office. I guess if it's since the last time we had you on, he is no longer in office. That's good. He still is awful and controlling the Republican Party. That's bad.
I thought you were going to say he's still alive. I was going to be like, Cliff.
I don't say those kinds of things on air.
I know.
Or at all, of course.
Or at all.
All you need to do is say NSA. Just kidding.
Yep.
Exactly.
Oh God.
So why don't we I think the best thing to start with is your book and what that tells us that we need to know about how to survive in this world.
Let's tell them the title. That'll be the first thing to tell them how to survive.
We didn't. I thought we did. I guess we didn't before we went on air, did we?
I think we might have. See, I broke my cardinal rule, folks out there, which is when you have chit chat before the show, you forget what you discussed off the air and on the air because you go, oh yeah, we talked about that. So I asked Mary, I double checked the title of the book, so I thought I told the title of the book.
And me too. That's my problem.
Right.
Okay, go ahead.
The Reckoning, Our Nation's Trauma and Finding a Way to Heal. Mary's earlier book, which was much angrier, and we loved it, was Too Much and Never Enough. Donald Trump.
That's right.
Wackadoo. I threw in the last part, but
yeah. Actually, the second book is just as angry as the first one. The subtitle notwithstanding. So.
Yay!
Well, you are, but I mean, you are. I always forget. So, are you a therapist? What do we describe what you are, or you're by training?
I'm a clinical psychologist by training, and since I don't practice anymore, I kind of consider myself an academic psychologist now.
Okay. Did you do therapy? Meaning, did you conduct therapy?
I did. I used to. Yeah.
Oh, so you did. Okay.
Oh, yeah. I worked in the admissions ward of a state psychiatric hospital, and then I did. I worked with patients in local clinics for a while.
A perfect job for a Trump.
I was going to say state psychiatric. That the joke's too easy there, John.
Way too easy, but my upbringing did prepare me.
Wait, can I? One thing, Cliff. Before we get into the substance, I was thinking about this earlier, and because I really was looking forward to having you on. Like, I always feel like I have a nice guffaw with you whenever we're talking. I don't laugh enough normally. And
does that mean you're laughing at me? I don't understand.
Oh, not on the contrary. I love chatting with you. But
I try to get John to laugh. Successful maybe 40% of the time.
Well, no, yeah, actually, and it was funny because I was talking with Adam Parkamenko about this, who's a friend of mine, but also knows Mary, and we were saying the same thing. Like, I really think you're lovely, and how you came out of that family, but it got me thinking you must have had really good parents because boy, you didn't get any of the bad stuff from that family. It seems. I shouldn't say any. I mean, I'm not asking you to tell your bad stuff, but or did she?
I know.
I don't want to get into the specifics of my particular nuclear family because families are all complicated.
Yeah.
But my dad, obviously, I think would have been a good person if he'd been allowed to be.
Yeah.
But he was a very sick person. He was an alcoholic. He basically the person he could have been, the potential, the man that I've heard about from his friends who continue to believe he was the best person they ever knew, was gone by the time I was born. So sadly, I didn't really get that. And what's interesting is that good parents can end up with children who turn out to be bad people.
Right.
Yep.
And not so great parents can end up with children who turn out to be decent people. And there's a whole range in between that. So I think the thing that most saved me.
Sorry, go on. Yeah, go on.
From my family was, two things actually. Proximity. I didn't grow up in that horrifying house of horrors.
Right.
And experiences. I went to summer camp on Cape Cod, which gave me a whole different kind of experience from the one of playing in parking lots in Jamaica, Queens. Right. And that's the second thing. I grew up in Jamaica, Queens, not Jamaica Estates. I grew up in a diverse kind of working class, lower middle class neighborhood that experience really grounded me. So I didn't grow up. I mean, first of all, my parents weren't rich anyway. So my family's enormous wealth notwithstanding, I didn't grow up like a rich kid either.
That probably, I mean, again, but that probably had something to do with it. And yet you see so many examples of, sometimes as you brought up, there you could have terrible parents and be good people. And you can, I mean, we don't fully know the nature nurture breakdown. We don't. So I mean, you see people from the same family sometimes, where one of them is incredible and the other one, becomes Idi Amin. I mean, it's
or several of them.
Exactly, or several. Even generationally, it happens. I mean, for all we know, Hitler had nice parents, right? So,
that works.
Donald Amin Jr.
Hey, listen, we got to talk about. He's like now second in the polling for the Republican nomination, because that's what cults do.
Wait, second?
Who is
behind whom?
Who was he behind? I think, was it DeSantis? It was somebody like that.
Oh, it depends where. Trump and DeSantis, it depended which poll. I think it's at CPAC or one of them. DeSantis was ahead. I forget which one. And at the West.
But I saw Trump Jr. in one of them.
Oh, Trump Jr.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
I don't remember. I wish I had it. Maybe it was in one of the early states or something. I don't know. But he was in there.
Still first.
I think so, yeah.
Donald Sr.
Wait, Mary, I don't remember if we got into enough previous broadcasts about Don Jr. Is he, I mean, what the hell is going on with him? He seems very odd to me. He seems a little dumb, but I've learned sometimes dumb isn't dumb. But he also seems he reminds me of
John can ask things that are very sort of, in a way, offensive in such a sincere way.
Well, it's not offensive to her.
No, I know. But it doesn't even sound the way you say it offensive to anybody. You say it in such a nice way.
Oh, okay. I always credit the Brits for doing that. Aren't you a little fucker? And you're like, exactly. Oh, I love your accent.
Bonjour. Okay, I'll let it go. There was a question there about Don Jr. So I don't know if you want to.
What's his deal?
What's his deal?
You know what I mean.
Well, just in terms of the situation into which he was born, he does share he shares that with my dad. Oldest son of quote unquote powerful person. I mean, I think Donald's the weakest person on the planet, but he's been propped up so much that clearly, even though he didn't deserve it, he had a lot of influence. He had a lot of money, all of which was my grandfather's money. He had a lot of connections. So I think Donnie was born with the same expectation my father was born with, which was, you're the oldest son, you carry the name, not just the last name, but you are the namesake, and you must follow in the footsteps and surpass what your father has accomplished, and you must do it exactly according to his preferences, that, because my dad was a good person, I believe, it killed him. He just couldn't live up to the unreasonable expectations my grandfather had. So he tried to strike out on his own, was incredibly successful. He became a jet pilot, at the dawn of the jet age. He flew for TWA, which is a big deal in 1964. But he couldn't sustain it, so he ended up going back into the business, and that was it. By the time he was 26, his life was essentially over. Donnie is weak in a different way. He had no intention of striking out on his own. He had no intention of doing anything but sucking up and towing the line. And one of the problems is that, and whoever knows how this happens, but kind of the same thing happened to him that happened to my dad. My grandfather, for whatever reason, didn't like my father and saw something in his younger sibling, Donald. And because this is the only thing that's weird, is that Donald did the same thing, but with a child who was a female. Like, my grandfather never would have looked to either one of his daughters to fill that role. But Donald had this thing for Ivanka really early on, and Donnie was left in the dust. And yet he still tries, doesn't he? In fact, I mean, I think he's like many other people in my family. He has no core. He has no ideology, no beliefs. And he'll Donnie, sorry.
Yeah.
He'll out racism anybody. He'll out misogyny anybody. He'll out shoot it. He'll shoot as many innocent animals as possible to get whatever passes for affection in my family. And it's, similar to what Donald does. Donald loves the Nazis because they love him. Donnie loves the maggots because they love him, and they'll behave however they need to behave to keep that love coming in, because they don't know what love is. And John pointed out,
if you like them, to them, you're a good person, no matter what else. I mean, Don Sr. has said that plenty of times. Like, well, how can I get mad at them? They say nice things about me, kind of.
That's the only criterion. For Donnie, it's more a way to get his father's attention, which he never will. And John said it earlier. Donnie is a deeply unintelligent person. I've been asked this: who's the stupidest one? And it's him. No offense.
So let me jump in on, because I'm interested in what you just said. So I went to Penn undergrad. I think I said that before in here, and I'm on.
Cliff's a very smart person.
This has nothing to do with that. I'm not really that smart at all, and I would never get in today.
No, I'm quoting Trump,
the reason I bring it up,
Donald went there, so
that's why I said it. Exactly. I went to Penn. I'm a very smart person.
We could go into that because my wife went to Miami of Ohio, and I would make fun of her because Paul Ryan went there, and then Donald Trump came along and became president. I'm like, I give up. You win.
Totally.
But no, I only bring it up for a very specific reason, which is I'm on certain alumni Facebook groups, things like that. And I remember when Donald started running, somebody posted something who had been on the freshman hall there with young Donnie, I guess you call him, and brought up this case of where his dad showed up and Donnie comes out into the hall from his dorm, and he's going to take him back to New York for a Yankees game or something, and he's in his suit. And Donnie is in like a Yankees hat and a sweatshirt or something, and he slaps him across the face in front of the whole hall. I add that to other anecdotes I've seen along the way. One of the biographers who wrote about Trump, I'm trying to remember if it was Tim O'Brien, and one of them, somebody went into how apparently there was a huge, almost physical fight between them when he was young, and Donald Sr. was cheating on Ivanka, and he said, you've destroyed our lives. So in the sense that I always got was, he just fell into line eventually because that's what you do. That maybe there was some independence there early on. I'm not claiming he was a nice kid. I'm not claiming anything. I'm just saying maybe there was some independence, but eventually those expectations that you're talking about, the easiest thing is and the easiest thing psychologically is to just go all in, right? You don't want to go partially in. So now my dad's a god and he's right about everything. And that's my sense anyhow from those.
I think it was even more transactional than that, because to be very clear, I'm much older than they are. I didn't grow up with them. Donnie is 12 years younger. Ivanka's 16. They're a different generation of grandchildren. Like there were three of us, my brother, my older cousin, and I, for 12 years before the three of them came along. So I don't know them necessarily. However, the patterns repeat. And it's also important to remember that Donald didn't raise these people. He didn't have anything to do with them except for Ivanka maybe, until they were adults practically. And at that point, because in my family, money is the only currency. Money is love, money is acceptance, money is affection. You want to have money, you want to have as much of that as possible, because otherwise you have nothing. So that's basically how it's set up. The other thing I'll say, though, yes, I have no doubt that my cousins had, despite their enormous privilege, didn't have a great childhood. They were raised by governesses and had awful parents. But Donald's childhood was much worse than Donnie's. And there are people on the planet who had much, much worse childhoods than Donald did. Pathetic people. They may not be well, but they turned out to be decent human beings. And, it's not an excuse. They're both.
No, I'm not making excuses. I want to be clear. It's just that maybe maybe at one point in his life early, there were some independent thoughts. And he made that decision to go all in with dad and allow them to be snuffed out. That,
Well, my uncle Rob told me that when Donnie was in college, he was floating the idea of joining, I don't know, the Air Force maybe, which would have been ironic.
Yeah.
And both Donald and Ivana said they'd disown him if he did that.
Right. Well, also, but your father went through that same thing, didn't he? Because he was becoming a pilot, he got threatened by the father, or what was the deal with that?
My dad was working with my grandfather right out of college. Well, he worked for my grandfather throughout during the summers. And once he graduated from college, he got a business degree from Lehigh. He went right to Trump management, working full time. And it became clear to him very early on that my grandfather had no intention of making room for him. He treated him terribly in front of people who presumably would be my dad's employees someday. And, he was given no independence. He was given no projects to work on to prove his mettle.
Right.
And he decided to, be proactive. And he took on the project of upgrading the windows in some of the many, many buildings in my grandfather's empire because they needed to be upgraded. So, he made this deal and he started getting the work done. And my grandfather was absolutely incensed and just
right.
tore him down in the office. And I think my dad actually never recovered from it, but that was the turning point. And he quit. And he said, I'm going to go follow my real passion.
Right.
Because he got his personal and professional pilot's license while he was in college. He applied. He's like, I'm gonna apply to as many airlines as I need to. He applied to TWA, got accepted immediately, and was in the pilot class, their first pilot class of 1964, and was flying out of Logan Airport to LAX by that May.
Right.
Like that's how good he was. And by Labor Day, his father had browbeaten him so severely that his drinking was out of control and he was asked to leave. And he ended up back in New York working for his dad.
Let me ask you, you had also mentioned Ivanka and Donald Trump, former president. What is the nature of their relationship?
Uncomfortable.
What I mean is, it seems weird to me, their relationship. He seems infatuated with her. It's weird. Is it not weird?
Well, all relationships in my family are weird because they don't really know how to be human. But listen, I have no idea, but I was 16. Ivanka was born like 2 months after my dad died. So I saw her grow up. Not really. I only saw them on the kids on holidays.
Right.
But there was a very striking difference between how he interacted with her and how he interacted with the boys.
Right.
Like she was glued to him. They're always like smooching and not.
I know what yeah.
It wasn't like, it didn't cross a line.
Right.
But it was odd. She was always sitting on his lap and I don't know how to explain it. And I don't know what else. What was interesting to me about it was that he was so unself-conscious about it.
Right. Well, but
I've always, again, like I'm not a psychologist or psychiatrist. I never took it. Some people want to sort of push it as, he wants to have incest with her. He wants to, that's never the way I took it. I took it as she was a representation of him and his own weird mind. And so she needed to be perfect. She needed to be the woman, in his case, as he said on Howard Stern's show, a piece of ass as far as he saw it, because that's what a woman's value was. And if she was this hot woman that everybody wanted and, all these kinds of things, I feel like to him, that was a representation. Exactly. It was based on his ego, that she was, that's at least the way I always felt like all that stuff was.
Well, yeah, I think it was a very similar dynamic between my grandfather and Donald. My grandfather saw really everybody. As you said, he saw his children as his property, and they were an extension of him to the extent that they could be useful to him. What's interesting, to the extent that it's interesting, is that not only did the dynamic is, you described it exists. And I do think that Donald identified with her somehow. Yeah. But as an adult, the person she most reminds me of, and again, I don't know her. I haven't seen her in a very, very, very long time. She reminds me of my grandfather.
Interesting. And that's the person who you think is the most evil. So,
well, yeah, but he's a sociopath. So, take
that for what it's worth.
What you will. Yeah.
Well, no, funny because but isn't she the normal one? John. I always thought No, I'm just asking.
He's the one who does evil things with a smile, John.
But that's what I'm asking, though. I mean, for Mary, she obviously tries to give off this impression, and at one point I was almost fooled by it, thinking, hey, she might be the normal one of the Trumps. Wow, I'm telling you, I thought initially I was a little fooled by it. She seemed like she might be a decent person. I mean, I started falling for it, but I don't disagree with you, but that's why I'm asking you. Clearly not. By your face. No,
if you had met my grandfather, he was a very cheerful person.
Oh, interesting.
I mean, he didn't exactly have but he had a glint in his eye, and he smiled a lot, and you would not think, holy cow, this guy is a totally evil sociopath. Right. You wouldn't think that at all, right?
Right.
I don't know.
The best serial killers are very nice.
Of course.
But that's what they say, right? That's part of it. Yeah. You have the charm. That's what, You think of her holding up the can of Goya, John. That's the smiley whatever, but behind
or a swindler, right?
But behind that, she's agreeing with all the stuff her dad's doing. She's empowering him. So it's bullshit. Yeah. It's fluff.
The other thing, though, too, is that, I mean, obviously I'm coming at it from a different perspective, but I find her to be so inauthentic. Like, I've never quite understood why anybody bought it, but.
Right. Well, no, she's got a fake accent, the way she talks. Honestly, it's funny, too. People got pissed at me online, but that dress she wore to the UN, do you remember that? Oh God, it was like the first year Trump goes, no, but I showed it to my mom. My mom already couldn't stand Trump, and she, a good moderate Republican, she was outraged, 91-year-old outraged. But she went to the UN, Trump goes to the UN, and there's some meeting of religious lunatics at the UN going on. Ivanka is like his representative going to the meeting, and she wears a blouse that is prominently portraying her nipples through the blouse. But I mean, no, I told my mom,
because it became a thing on Twitter. People
I went and found the original Getty images, multiple images. It was, I can't, I'm going to send this to you after the show, Mary.
Oh, please don't.
Well, fair enough.
Mary, block him right now. Block everything.
But it was a matter of understanding this woman, and not only the UN representing the U.S. and your father, but she was going to a religious conclave and wearing a blouse that was the most pornographic thing I'd ever. I couldn't. What goes through someone's mind that would do that?
That's something she. Oh, sorry.
Yeah,
that's something she shares with her father, this enormous sense of entitlement. Anything she does is good because she's the one doing it.
And there's an attention-seeking aspect too, I suspect, because how did you not know?
Right, and who wasn't telling you? But it's that in a way is of a piece with her thinking that she can stand shoulder to shoulder with the president of the IMF.
Remember that?
Angela Merkel and Theresa May. Not sure Theresa May should have been standing just shoulder to shoulder with them either.
Probably not, but still.
But it's totally different. She was an elected prime minister. And Ivanka's nobody.
Actually, Jeff, can I tell people really quick what Mary's talking about is there's a video at one of the G8s or G20s or whatever, the leading NATO, one of the groups of like top allied countries. And you've got the head of the IMF, Christine Lagarde, like you said, I guess it was Theresa May, the head of the Prime Minister of the UK at that time, and somebody else. And
Angela Merkel.
Oh, Angela Merkel. Okay, and the three
Merkel,
of them,
who's one of the most accomplished, a chemist.
Right. Chancellor of Germany. She's a brilliant scientist as well, Merkel.
Yes.
So these women, these three incredible, and Christine Lagarde, my God, the brain on that woman. The three brilliant women are talking, and Ivanka's there, and it reminds you like when you're at a party, and you kind of want to be part of a group, but you're not. And Ivanka has sort of thrown herself into this intimate group of three people talking, and they're all all having this, high-level physics discussion or something, and Ivanka's going, "Oh yes, oh."
And
exactly.
I also think that the sun comes out in the morning, and they're all just ignoring her, basically.
But she's literally chiming in with these little sentences, and you're watching the video, and every time she's doing it, you're cringing because you know exactly what's going on.
The Lagarde eye roll was just classic.
I remember that well. It was an eye roll, and there was also this look of, does she really think she's fucking talking to me? Like it was even beyond an eye roll. It was like, like just shock that this person thinks she can. I mean, it was a beautiful.
I wish somebody had asked her to go fetch them a cup of coffee.
Dear, I need a little freshener here.
Little tea, please.
Probably vodka.
Did you see the story, Mary, that when Trump was trying to pressure Pence to overthrow the election results in essence, and turned to him and he said, if you don't do this, I'm not going to be your friend anymore. Did you see that quote?
Mm-hmm.
I often was as annoyed by the way he would talk like a child as I was by the fact that he was doing sociopathic things. Like, they were very unnice to me. They were mean to me.
Well, but that's my question for Mary. What is that? I just thought that was
12-year-old.
Like Cliff said, it sounded like a child, but does that say something about what's going on in his brain psychologically? I mean, who would say something like that at age 73?
Well, it's a deeply disturbed person. Listen, there's so much wrong with him.
I'm not going to be a friend.
Some of that's just arrested development. Some of that is, well, in normal circumstances, one would say a delusional idea about how important you are to other people. But again, he's been so propped up for his whole life. Like, why wouldn't he think that would be deeply wounding to somebody?
Well, I was going to say, can I say real quick, that was what I was thinking was, in addition to being very childish, like Cliff was saying, I was detecting ego as well, which is, you want me as your friend, buddy. I'm the best thing ever, and I'm not going to be your friend because that's the biggest commodity out there.
I'm going to pass a note about you in the cabinet.
Yeah,
meeting.
but there's a boosting of myself, although I'm saying it as a child, which is really messed up.
Listen, probably the most essential thing about Donald, and I don't say this to garner sympathy for him because he's horrible, but the thing he most craves in this world is to be loved. The problem, however, is that my grandfather made him unlovable. So imagine being in that situation. Yeah. And yet also having the deeply, I mean, it's hard to overstate the depths of his narcissism. So, which again is just protection in some ways against his knowledge that he's really quite worthless and not lovable. So, that's the tension. And which is why I've thought all along the best way to diffuse his hold on the party or his power would be to mock him and say, you think I give a shit if you're my friend?
Right.
I think you're a loser. Right. You lost.
I don't want to play with you either.
Something like that. But nobody ever did that.
No, I mean, I think the irony to me, it's not irony, it's like a paradox, right? Which is, he cares so much what the important people think about him. He wants to be loved even more, the elites, the guy from Queens looking over into Manhattan, all that. But the more he got larger groups of people to love him among the deplorables, the more the exact group of people he wanted to love him despised him. Right. And so it becomes this thing where, and then it's almost like this cycle, because then he gets angry and more resentful because all these people that love Obama can't stand him, don't want to be around him, and then he says worse things, and the cycle keeps going.
Well, and also the people who quote unquote love him are people he despises.
I was going to ask you that.
Yeah, right. Do you think he would ever play golf with them or have a meal with them?
But what do you think he's thinking whenever he's at these rallies, or I think especially one, because rallies, at least they're all blended together. But like when those 12 religious leaders have their hands on him praying, what do you think he's really thinking?
Suckers.
You know what I mean? Like he must think, even I would find that bizarre. But for him?
he thinks they're assholes. He thinks they're dupes. He thinks they're marks, and they are, but it's, we say, what is he thinking about? He can't acknowledge consciously that he despises the people who love him, because that would diminish the importance of their loving him, right?
And it would diminish their love too. Like, oh, bad people love me, so what am I? Yeah.
Well, he wouldn't say bad. He would just say
tacky,
because he likes the way they hate. Right. He likes the way they're angry, and he uses it. But the fact that they're lower middle class, or they like NASCAR or whatever,
right. They like pets. Remember, he got on Pence's case early on. Pence was going to have, was it a dog or a cat he was going to have, and at the vice president's residence, and Trump went off about how low class it was to have pets. Oh, it was a whole story at the beginning, and it was just, I'm like, you hate pets, and you think pets are low class, which
also
is
sort
really
of amazing.
Weird.
What he thinks is low class versus like, whatever he does to his hair isn't low class, or having a suit that has never once fit you and like looks like it's falling off you isn't low class, but having a pet is.
Or like eating fast food 3 times a day, or not exercising, or whatever.
Ketchup on your burnt steak.
Oh, please.
Oh, yeah.
But his narcissism is such that he will always convince himself that the people who love him are the best. He's the center of the universe. I'm telling you, if the Republican Party had done the responsible thing, and I know that's a ridiculous thing to say because they never will, but if they had ignored him and his big lie immediately, rejected him, embraced, if not embraced, but at least acknowledged robustly President Biden's overwhelming victory, the good news is Donald would have been rendered pretty much powerless, just like any other one-term loser. But he would have gone down to Mar-a-Lago, surrounded himself with a group of hardcore sycophants, and he still would have believed that he was in control of everything. Like, it kind of reminded me in some ways, like I'm not saying he's suffering from dementia, because I don't know. But when my grandfather had really bad Alzheimer's, they took him to his office 6 days a week. They dressed him up in a suit. His limo drove him out there, and he sat behind his desk,
like a Vita,
probably doing absolutely nothing. And he still believed that he was running the show.
Right.
That's kind of what Donald reminds me of, except, of course, the Republican Party has decided to keep him relevant and powerful, which is one of the reasons we are in the terrible trouble we're in.
Yeah. Well, I think that's probably a good segue. Like, I don't really even think we've talked about your book and really what it says, and what we need to learn from it, and reminding people it exists and they should buy it. So why don't you tell us a little bit about it?
I started thinking of the second book about a year ago, maybe last October, maybe. Things were still so terrible. We were in our second wave of COVID, and the economy was in free fall. And yet we still had to worry about the election, which was unbelievable.
It just one hit after another. I know, right?
Over 200,000 people had died, most of them unnecessarily because of Donald already. And yet, there was a greater than 40% chance. I mean, it was just insane. And also, a lot of us knew that his trying to steal the election ahead of time didn't begin and end with the call to Zelensky.
Yes.
Their failure to convict him after the first impeachment was permission to keep doing it. So he was absolutely trying everything in his power to steal the election, and he came really close.
And he had sycophants, as you pointed out, who were there all along the way, which we'll talk about later. But
that's
sorry,
right.
Go ahead.
But in the moment, I was most concerned about, okay, what is going to happen when and if we ever emerge from COVID? We are going to be staring down the barrel of the worst mental health crisis this country has ever seen. We're not prepared for it at the best of times. How can we prepare? How can we figure out how to move on? Because I believe that it wasn't until we started to emerge that we were going to see just how big the problem was and just how many people were affected. Then I realized that's not what can I say that's useful? I can't craft policy. I can't fund agencies. So, and I certainly can't write 330 million different individual treatment plans. So I thought it would be more useful to take a step back and figure out how the hell did this country get to the point where we were so susceptible to corrupt, incompetent, cruel leaders like Donald, that we were so willing to follow a party that in the Republican Party, not all of us, but a significant majority of us were willing to stick with, no matter what, a Republican Party that is now a full-blown party of fascists, that has as one of its major platforms white supremacy. How did this happen?
Right.
So, I'm not a historian, but I understand as a psychologist, we know that everything is about story in some ways. In order to get to the essential truth of where a person is, we need to understand how they got there.
Right.
So I look back and two things became really clear very early on, that from this, I started with the idea that from its inception, this country has been traumatized. Either, it's the people, the white people coming here and inflicting the trauma, or it's the indigenous population and the kidnapped and enslaved African populations that were traumatized. And this is carried over and compounded through the generations. The trauma is on the one hand, and the sense of privileges on the other hand. But two other through lines I saw is that two of the reasons I think that we ended up at this particular moment, and we can sort of think of Donald as the absurd conclusion of 2.5 centuries of this, is on the one hand, no powerful white men have ever been held accountable, starting with Robert E. Lee. And two, we have never acknowledged, let alone atoned for, how powerful white supremacy has been and continues to be in this country. We now have the Republican Party saying this is not a racist country. And not only is it not now, it never has been, slavery notwithstanding. So I think it's borne out, my premise is borne out by what we're seeing happen now. Racism is not only not a deal breaker for much of the American electorate, it's something that encourages them. There's a reason that 12 million more people voted for him in 2020 than did in 2016. And it's not because he was good at his job.
That is for sure. Comments, John?
I don't even know. I mean, because what worries me is that then I'm like, then what the hell can we do? I mean, if we're at this point because of all the sin, and I say this, Cliff and I have discussed these topics a lot on the show. I don't think America's different than any other country in terms of the bad things we've done. Every country, every group of people actually has done bad things, but we've got to deal with our bad things. So they're not to be ignored simply because others have done bad things too. But there's a little bit of I worry sometimes because I feel like, well, shit, if it goes back 400 years, to slavery, but also every other bad thing we've done, then how the hell do you fix it? Because it's like trying to fix somebody at age 90 for a life of traumas, in essence. I mean...
Well, we're quite young as a democracy.
Then we're 38.
Yeah. We're like adolescents. Okay. I mean, it's important, though, to point out that there has been progress. I mean, there was the Equal Rights Amendment in 1964, the Voting Rights Act in 1965, which have been largely undone, but they were accomplished, so...
Well, but LGBT and frankly race, there's been a hell of a lot of progress on race just culturally from when I was a kid to now. I mean, when I was a kid in the 60s. I mean, this is way more acceptance today. I mean, interracial marriage. I told you, I have I'll tell you really quick, because I've mentioned this once a long time ago, and I say this about my mother, who is a saint. And I think I told her this once recently, and she went, oh my God, I said that? But this is like late 1960s. I must have been 6 years old, but boy, it's stuck in my head. And we're outside, like the Art Institute, I think, because I remember the big lions. And Mom in Chicago, and we see a black and white couple walk by. One white, one black. And Mom says, I know it's wrong. I mean, she meant to say this, but it just makes me uncomfortable. And first of all, be careful what you say to your kids, because I remember this. And now she goes, oh my God, I didn't say that. I was like, oh my, you did. And, that kind of thing, my mother is mortified that she would think something like that today. I think a lot of us have come a long way. And like you said, LGBT, or I said LGBT, women, I mean, we've made incredible progress in just the last 50 years. I just wanted to jump in, because I think even on other issues, I think people undercut sometimes the success we've made, I think. Feel to recognize.
It's very important to keep that in mind. Otherwise, what's the point? As you said earlier, like what hope is there?
Yeah.
The problem is that the arc of the moral universe, it may bend towards justice, but it's not really an arc. It's more like the EKG of a patient in cardiac arrest.
Right.
So, for every...
Occasionally you have to shock it.
You have to shock it, but you get to here and then you get brought back down there and you almost flatline because people like Donald got into the Oval Office, or people like Mitch McConnell exist, or whatever. And, part of the struggle is that this country has never actually been a democracy. There have always been significant numbers of people who've been kept out of the franchise, and continue to be, because of voter suppression legislation that Republicans are pushing, or partisan gerrymandering, or whatever. So I think one thing we need to remember is that there are more of us than there are of them. And keeping that in mind, we need to somehow convince the Democrats, who are in government, that we're the majority and we need to govern as such. Otherwise, we're going to lose everything. And I'm not entirely sure why they don't seem to understand that. I'm sure some of them do, but not enough of them do.
I would say, we talk about that a lot in this show, lack of their willingness to be aggressive in message. And it gets so frustrating. Because we're up against people who, again, have shown they have no respect for democracy. They'll use every accidental advantage from the Electoral College to, the two senators from cow states. But at the same time, they'll take advantages that aren't provided for them in the Constitution. Mitch McConnell not advising and consenting on Merrick Garland, it's in the Constitution. Meanwhile, we sit here and what's not in the Constitution is the filibuster.
Right.
What's not in the Constitution is the parliamentarian. And we're sitting here watching this, and you're thinking to yourself, if you've got a country you think is potentially on the precipice where you could fall to full-blown authoritarianism, and yet, based on our Constitution, you have a vice president who's the president of the Senate who could walk in today and declare, I'm the president of the Senate, I make the rules. That's the way it's always been. Majority and minority leaders don't exist in the Constitution either. I'm declaring that I'm changing the rules, declaring the filibuster to be gone. I'm declaring a majority. She could do that. But here we are, instead of using the tools we have in the Constitution, we won't use the power it gives us to bend over backwards for norms that hinder us even further. And they'll use power not given to them. To me, that's the biggest, asymmetrical part of what we're dealing with right now.
Yeah. And what people like Manchin don't seem to realize is that by claiming that bipartisanship is a necessary function of governing, he's essentially trying to make common cause with a party of fascists who don't believe in democracy and who, if given the opportunity, will make sure that this country becomes a theocratic apartheid state.
Right. Yeah, it's the party whose very local, divisions, if you want to talk about it, are the ones making it necessary for us to pass the voting rights. It's like, in Michigan, in Ohio here, in Arizona, in Florida, they're the ones who are passing these laws, Texas, to take away voting rights. We're like, but we're going to talk to your national guys. And unless some of them agree with us that the local guys are doing bad things, then we're not going to do anything about it. It's insane.
It's mystifying because at the most basic level, the Republicans only want Republicans to be able to vote, and the Democrats want everybody to be able to vote. Right. So it's pretty much that simple. So why it's even a question that why it's even debatable is kind of bizarre to me. And yet we're still debating this stuff. And the Republicans are still being given the power, and they're being given it. They're not seizing it, although they would seize it if they needed to. To interfere with the democratic process. And they're essentially using the big lie that there was enormous amounts of voter fraud to push for voter suppression. So their voter suppression legislation is based on a lie. Because like the number of fraudulent votes cast in the last billion votes cast is vanishingly small. It's like 30 or something.
And they were almost all for Trump, by the way. In all seriousness, the case they discovered were, So, I mean, I know. And I mean, it's hard to know what to do in that circumstance, because sometimes you just want to scream and yell. It seems so obvious to me what needs to be done. And they won't do it.
That's why it's so infuriating.
I mean, one part of what you were saying, Mary, is that not that Democrats should take the opposite point of view and say, let's make sure Republicans can't vote. But when you're negotiating and one party is saying, right, like you said, my position is Democrats shouldn't vote. The other guy's position is everybody should vote. And then the public goes, okay, well, let's have a compromise. So what do? You now have a watered down version of Republicans should vote. Cliff, I don't know if you said this the other day or somebody else said to me, which I didn't realize, that California's gerrymandering law or whatever, that basically the new congressional districts are done in some impartial way, whether it's an independent commission or something like that, right?
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
And you or somebody else raised the point of, that's great, but in every other state, it's screwing Democrats. So what Democrats just did is they ceded any ability to sort of push back and, make California a little more unfairly Democratic because every other state is screwing Democrats. And frankly, I think Biden's in the same position.
We don't get the concept of leverage.
Well, it's worse than that, Cliff. Can I say real quick, Mary? It's Biden. Same problem with Biden. Love Biden, but I think we've got to be critical of Biden to make a better Biden. Biden is in this position where he's trying to be the president America needs and not realizing that America, you can't be the bipartisan president. You can't be the nice guy where if you only stick to the issues, keep talking about the economy, COVID, and infrastructure, and everything will be fine, when the other guys are trying to literally have another coup to turn us into an authoritarian state. And we're not even talking about Trump as a party because, he's gone. Let's not talk about him when he's planning on overthrowing everything.
Yeah, he's not fucking gone, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And I think it's that Biden is trying to be the president he thinks we need. We need somebody playing hardball.
Yeah.
We need somebody who doesn't put institutions above democracy, just like we need journalists who don't put equal time for both sides above democracy. Right. And we also need somebody who understands, as you guys were just talking about, negotiating. There are some things like the infrastructure bill.
Right.
You do have to negotiate because we're talking about money, but you start at 20 trillion. If you want 5, you start at 20 trillion because they're starting at 0.
Right.
So if you get down to 5, you've made bigger concessions than they've made. There are certain things that are non-negotiable because this is a democracy and you do not make common cause with anti-democratic counter-majoritarians. So for something like voting rights, you don't say, okay, we want everybody to vote. You don't want anybody to vote. We'll meet in the middle. You say everybody votes, period. This is not a negotiation. Same thing with a woman's right to choose. This is not negotiable. The reason is none of your business. This is a matter of privacy. There are no exceptions. because this is a personal medical healthcare decision.
Right.
Same thing, in my view, same thing with guns. There should be 0 guns in this country. What is amazing, and I'm sorry, I'm kind of changing the subject, but I know, Cliff, this is your matter of expertise.
No, you're making a lot of sense. So keep going.
So I think that there should be no guns, and they think there should be all of the guns at all times in the hands of everybody, completely unregulated. What's, I think, really telling about where we are as a culturally, is that their position is totally acceptable and mine would be considered insane.
Yeah. No, you're right. And you know what? I've always even been somebody where I believe in very strong regulation. But if you go through a background check and all that stuff, you live in rural areas, you want a rifle, I'm good with that. But the truth is that maybe you need to step out and say, we're taking all of your guns to get them to meet you where you need them to meet you, just because they're accusing us of that anyhow. And all most of us are trying to do is have the same kinds of sane laws other countries have, where there's gun ownership, Canada or Scandinavia or places like that. And they won't let us get anywhere near that.
Right.
So you're right. I mean, it may just be that you have to take it that much further to get them to meet you in the middle.
Well, and frankly, let's have that discussion. Let's make them prove their case. I mean, I would argue, I totally get why, when I was in Alaska, fair enough. You needed a gun when we went camping because literally, and I was like, why do we need a shotgun? Because there might be bear. And I went,
bears.
We need to defend ourselves against bears? Apparently we do. That freaked me out. I wasn't thrilled about camping at that point, but also I really was. I was like.
And John has never camped again, everyone.
Well, no, I mean, I haven't since then, but I would. But I mean, I'm not exactly Mr. Rough and Tumble. I was like, we need a gun. But, so I get it in those situations. But you know what?
It's another reason to hate camping. Sorry.
Exactly. Well, no, but don't give me this bullshit about
showers. You need guns. Just poop in the woods. Nothing's good.
Don't give me this bullshit about you've got to defend your family. Bullshit. You live in a big city. You got to defend your family. How many people literally need guns to defend their families? And you know what? If you're worried about someone coming into your place, then I know the left is going to hate me for saying this. Then let's support the police and have more cops. But I mean, give me this. Something. But don't give me this bullshit argument. But
they're licensed and registered,
but Cliff,
and people.
But my point is, make them defend themselves. Don't just give me this bullshit about everyone has the right to defend their family. Why the fuck do you need a gun? Seriously, all our homes are getting broken into? Really?
You brought up the only times I can accept. I went to camp up in New Hampshire. I can accept in rural areas, and that there's hunting. There's also protecting yourself from a bear. So like rifles, shotguns, licensed, registered. You have to go through a psych test. You have to go through a background. Right. I'm all for that, and I'm okay with that.
But hobbyist bullshit. Hobbyist,
but the rest of it is bullshit.
Then I want grenades as a hobbyist. Give me a break. You get a gun as a hobbyist. No way.
A big problem is that Cliff, you would know for how many years, if not decades, the right has been blocking research into gun violence.
Yes.
So most people don't understand that if you have a gun in your house, the chances of you or somebody you love being shot to death increase dramatically. Like, you're more likely to be shot or have somebody you love shot than some phantom intruder.
It's, I think, a 450 to 500% chance. So it's 4 to 5 times more likely, because a couple of our government's not doing it, but like the Harvard School, I believe, they have in their health school, they've got like an injury, gun violence injury program, and some of these kinds of things have done those studies, and it's as clear as day.
Yeah.
And I agree with you. I want to go back to something you said. What's so important on the abortion rights debate is that, to me, the minute we agreed to that, I'm sorry, I don't know how else to put it, the bullshit of the Hyde Amendment is when right away I don't get to have a conscience clause about how you spend my money. What if I don't want my money going to Iraq for a war?
Explain.
What if I don't want my money being used on the death penalty?
Cliff, explain the Hyde Amendment.
The Hyde Amendment says that only one group of people, those who are anti-choice, get to say, I don't want my tax funds going to things I find morally abhorrent. So for a while, it still exists, I think, right? We've weakened it to a certain degree, whatever. But public funds cannot be used for Medicaid, for example, and other programs for women to get abortions. And yet my public funds, as in what I pay in taxes, can be used for all sorts of things that I find morally abhorrent. And right away when we agreed to that, go ahead.
Yeah, no, you're right. Joe Manchin supports the Hyde Amendment.
Right.
Right.
Ridiculous.
I don't want my money going to Joe Manchin.
Right. How about this? He makes $500,000 a year from mining companies. I don't want there to be any more mining because I find that abhorrent. Can we take all federal subsidies away from mining companies?
Yeah, listen, we are in such dire straits when apparently the most powerful person on the planet is a senator, one of two senators from a state with like 1/20th of the population of California. I think it might even be less than that.
It may be less, yeah.
I think it is quite a bit less. And with not just with things like the Hyde Amendment, because he's certainly not going to agree to getting rid of the filibuster to do anything about these abhorrent, the abhorrent SB 8 law in Texas that essentially ends a woman's right to choose. He's also dragging his feet and making it almost impossible for the Democrats to get their infrastructure bill through. He said recently that he didn't want to spend money unnecessarily, like, to help feed children and
stuff like that.
Our crumbling infrastructure and
give healthcare to people. Unnecessary.
In the event, because there might be another war down the road. So he's against spending $3.5 trillion over 10 years. People forget that part. Over 10 years, but he's totally cool with spending almost $1 trillion per year on defense. And he's, I think
that's the part I wanted to say, like
one of the top 3 poorest states in the country.
Right. It's the way we don't even debate what we're willing to spend on defense. And half the time, I think most people voting on it don't even know where all the damn money is going. No big contracts sometimes, or certainly overpaid defense companies and this kind of thing. And it's like, we don't even discuss that. But we're freaking out over 2.5 trillion over 10 years here.
And honestly, whenever I see military marching bands, like my head explodes, because just imagine how much those cost.
Oh my God, I didn't even think about that, but yeah.
And I know that's not the biggest problem.
No, I know, but
it's an example of the waste and the sort of the knee-jerk, whatever, the jingoism or what have you, that people seem to think that the only way to be supportive of your country is to spend money on weapons, on war,
So we need to tell the Pentagon I'm not going to be your friend anymore? But it needs to be said like, I'm not going to be your friend anymore.
You have to say it like that. They were very nice to me. The Pentagon wasn't nice. They didn't say nice things about me. Hey, I want to bring up one thing because I was
going to say there was some recent news we wanted to ask you about too before you go.
This is sort of maybe related to some of that, but you made a comment. I don't remember. You're on so many TV shows, Mary. It's hard to know which one it was on. By the way, good job with Meghan McCain. But we can talk about that another time.
Fun.
Thank you for saying what we were all thinking.
Wait, I missed it. Wait, I missed what she did with Meghan McCain.
Are you kidding me?
No,
well, now she may have to tell it if she's okay. You're good with that.
Yeah.
Well, let's see. There was the first time and there was the most recent time. But anyway, the first time I was on The View last year, Meghan made it very clear that she didn't like me. And she said it like a toddler because she is. And as you can imagine, I cared so deeply about that I just.
You're still getting over that?
I'm in therapy.
Like, Meghan, the president of the United States doesn't like me. You think I care what you think?
Yeah.
Anyway, so the second time I was on, she was on vacation. Hallelujah. And then most recently in August, I was on the Monday of her very last week ever on the show.
Right.
And I spoke with the producer ahead of time to go over, like all 5 of them wanted to ask me questions. And Meghan was going to be on. I was like, oh, I'm sure she's thrilled I'm coming back. And the producer was like, no, she's really interested in the mental health aspect of things. And these are the questions. Like, all right, whatever.
Sure.
So the next day, because it's everything Zoom now, before the show begins or goes live, each host comes on individually to say hi. And Whoopi Goldberg's like, hey, thanks so much for coming back. Joy Behar, Mary, let's get together for lunch. So the other two, very nice, polite.
Yeah.
Meghan comes on and she does this. Hello, it's Meghan. And that was it.
That was it?
That was it.
You're like, what is this, therapy? Like,
she's so pathetic. God.
So for reasons I'm not quite sure why, I was so angry. So angry. I'm like, all right, I am going to do something here. And then I found out that even though she had been on the segment before mine,
right,
she wasn't going to be on my segment.
Oh.
She ducked out.
Right, I don't care. It doesn't matter. I'm going to do something. I'm going to do something. So I was only supposed to be on one segment, but they brought me back after the commercial.
Right.
Like, thank goodness, because I hadn't been able to find an opening.
Right.
And then I realized I don't need an opening. I'm going to make up an opening. So the very last question was about whether or not Donald's going to run.
Right.
So I basically said something like, I don't know, but I have to say that I so appreciate all of your willingness to take on the difficult issues, because they had started talking about Vice President Harris and misogyny and racism.
Right.
And, you have a very powerful platform here, and it's so important to have these kinds of conversations. It's just a shame that your colleague doesn't have the courage to come on and have this conversation with me.
Oh my God.
How did you miss this, John?
Thank you so much. And then they cut to Whoopi Goldberg, who starts because Whoopi's like,
right.
And then Whoopi starts to say probably, goodbye, thank you.
Yeah.
And then she does this. And then she says, thank you so much for being here, Mary. So the professor's like, her producer's probably like, get her.
Meghan's actually even better. Meghan's demanding to come on. Cut the segment. That probably was
gonna
it.
explode.
Oh,
Meghan's
she was.
gonna
Can you see Meghan pushing her little Zoom button, going, "Let me fucking talk." Oh yeah.
So no, because she's a coward. So Meghan, because she's an idiot, tweets at me. And probably sold more books for me than anybody else, because Donald didn't sue me this time around. And she basically said, there's no good Trump. Leave me and my family the fuck alone.
My family?
First of all, she's therefore also saying that my cousin Barron, who's a teenager, is also not a good person.
Too. Right.
And there are other children Trumps rolling around, including my daughter. So anyway, I tweeted back something like, of course, this isn't true, but I needed to do something. I have the utmost respect for Meghan's parents.
Yep.
But it's a shame that, this is what entitlement looks like, and it's so dangerous or whatever. Right. And it was hysterical, and it went viral, and it was really
Did she jump back or no?
No.
Oh, I'm surprised she didn't
block you. Did she block you after that?
Did she what?
She's very liberal with the block button. Anybody says anything she slightly doesn't like, she's...
Well, I don't follow her, so...
Well, no, I never followed her too, but somehow she ended up in
you can block somebody you don't follow?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Somehow she ended up in somebody retweeted or did something with her whining and saying something stupid. And so I don't even remember. I just made some offhand sarcastic remark. Now, remember, I wrote a book that was very critical of her dad, but that would mean she'd have to do the research to find that out. And I doubt she looks into anything that deeply. So my guess is she just saw the sarcastic remark and then blocked me immediately. And apparently that's a thing with her.
Is your friend, Mary.
Yeah. Well, I mute people.
You can mute too. Yeah, muting's good too. Yeah.
I don't really pay that much attention to people I don't agree with on Twitter, because life is hard enough. But I think her response was to tell everybody who would listen that I'm just simply worthless and she shouldn't have to spend time with me.
Yeah. When did you check her family?
She was being paid to be the host of a show, so that's just her problem. Exactly. She had to spend time with you. That's the way it works when you have a job. She doesn't know that because she's never had a real job.
And there's a reason she got this one, but I can't quite remember what it was. Let me think.
Exactly.
Related to something.
It must be the multiple PhDs and all of the hard work she's done in political science and history and incredible.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not one for ad hominem attacks, but she's not.
There are some people that there are some people that just deserve it, and there's nothing you can do. I don't walk around launching ad hominems, but some of these people are so awful
Yeah.
Which, speaking of, I don't know if you'd call this an ad hominem, but what I was going to ask you about, and I brought up the Meghan McCain thing because that was one of my favorites. The other thing you said on one of the shows you were on this time around is you called Mitch McConnell the biggest traitor since Robert E. Lee, which I wanted to stand up and applaud for you because he's so normalized in D.C. and he's so accepted as, oh, well, Trump is out, outside the boundaries of what's acceptable, without looking at the fact that, which I bet your book does, that these very conditions, I mean, if you could name a few people, Newt Gingrich, Mitch McConnell, just a few of these arsonists of democracy that have burned down so much so that someone like Trump could come along. And so I'm just so glad you said that because I'm so tired of the fact that they will not criticize how evil and awful this man is.
Yeah, I mean, the book has an entire chapter about the insidiousness of Mitch McConnell and how the only thing you can say about Robert E. Lee is at least he took a stand and tried to bring us down from the outside, whereas Mitch McConnell's trying to do it within, portraying himself as a purveyor of democracy when he's the opposite. And I also point out that in our history, there has been no institution more anti-democratic than the Supreme Court, which some of us are learning for the first time. Because that's another institution, that's something else that gets normalized. And it's not just these six. I think all three of those Republican seats are corrupt. But that's my opinion. And I don't mean to suggest that the Supreme Court, every version of it has been anti-democratic, but at almost every turn throughout our history, when the Supreme Court has had the opportunity to expand democracy, they've chosen not to. So starting with Dred Scott.
Right. No, we just got lucky for that 140 or so year period because we elected FDR 27 times, which I'm okay with.
I think it was 4, but yeah.
I know. I exaggerate for fun. But also Truman. I mean, we had like actual solid, there were still some conservatives here, but we had a very good overall Supreme Court. We never would have gotten any of the kinds of equality that we got around race and anything else. And then the Reagan group started, and we really haven't resembled a Supreme Court that has the views of this country in 40 years now, even though we've won pretty much every election, popular vote, I should say.
I think what is, let's see, the Republicans who've gotten into the White House, who've lost the popular vote, have appointed 9 justices, and the Democrats have appointed 2 or something. My numbers are off, but it's quite. The system is so broken. We need term limits. Biden needs to expand the court yesterday.
Yeah.
It's not.
Another one of those things not in the Constitution that we could do right now and are just not doing because of norms or whatever that don't exist for the other side.
Never. I mean, that's if Donald did nothing else. He did a lot of actually useful things accidentally because he too is a moron who doesn't know anything about government.
Yes.
I mean, whether or not he's actually an idiot, I don't know. But when it comes to the United States and how its government works, he knows nothing. So he's shown us how fragile our institutions are because he just was able to dismantle them so quickly, and almost destroy some of them, like the State Department and the DOJ. And he's shown us that norms not only do they not matter, they don't exist anymore. Again, except the Democrats seem to think they do and act accordingly, which is going to get us all killed probably.
Yes. And on that happy note, but it's true. Go ahead, John.
Well, I was just going to say what you just said. James Carville was on the show, and he was talking about the responsibility gene. And I didn't know what he was talking. He said, Hillary Clinton says Democrats always basically sort of our fault, but our plus as well is that we have the responsibility gene. And he means that we're always the ones that have to come and be the adults in the room, whereas the other guys get to be crazy. And I don't know if she meant this, but I think she probably did, because I do. It's that earlier discussion we had about how the Republicans will stake out crazy land. It's the same thing with the debt limit debate right now. We've got to be the sane ones, and then we get punished for being sane.
Yeah. Well, here's what it is, right? AOC wears that dress to the Met Gala. Okay, maybe it's goofy.
Her dress said "tax the rich" on the back.
That perhaps wearing that dress to something that costs $35,000 a ticket is you're sabotaging your own message, and it was goofy. Yeah. But you're now going to equate that with Lauren Boebert saying that Christians should rise up and Biden's an illegitimate president, and essentially calling for another armed rebellion. I see Mary's cat. It's so cute. I'm saying nice things here. I can't. I mean, I love cats, so you know.
It's just a little ear in the corner.
I know. Look at that. So adorable. But in any case, let me try to get angry again.
There's the little.
Right and we're equating that.
Right. Yeah. There
we go. Ooh.
Oh, there you go.
Oh,
so cute.
Look at you. Adorable.
That's Lyndon.
I mean, Lyndon?
Right.
As in Johnson, or a different Lyndon?
No. It's my daughter's middle name.
Oh, I was thinking Johnson too. I'm like, ooh.
Okay. Would you say it was the last thing you said?
She has a healthy ego. She named her.
I like that. Hey, I named my son after my middle name, so I don't know what that says about me. I didn't want to have Cliff Senior and Junior, but I had the name Douglas. I never use it. We liked it. So there you go.
I'm totally cool with that.
In any case, that's my problem. And the media you brought up, because I rail about this to the point where I probably John wants to just throw me off the show sometimes, because I think the media is so responsible for so much of this, is that their job in a democracy is to give everybody the stakes of what, if you vote this way, here's what happens, to explain to everybody what is going on so we can then vote and be citizens accordingly. But instead it's vanilla or chocolate. Do you like this better? Hey, AOC wore a dress to this gala. And and guess what else happened? Lauren Boebert called for armed insurrection. See, they both have their crazies. And that's what we deal with.
Yeah, I mean, they seem not to learn from their mistakes. The media need to be neutral when it comes to presenting the facts. And always, as I said earlier, they need to be pro-democracy. Otherwise, what's the point of them? And you can't be pro-democracy if you're giving equal time and equal deference to a side like that represents the things Lauren Boebert is promulgating. You can't.
Yes. Right. Or
I blame us. But I blame.
I'll say quickly, John. Somebody, this became a big thing on Twitter the other day because one of the Daily Show writers, was it Joe Negrin, or one of the ones, tweeted out stuff on who Chuck Todd has been having on, and literally every week it's like, and John's brought this up before too. It's like 3 reporters and a Republican consultant. Right. And it means he's bought a whole mythology that the media is liberal, so he feels like they're on our side. Hint, they're not. Well, and so he has to balance it out with a Rich Lowry or a Ben Domenech or one of these people. It's ridiculous.
But I blame us for not holding them. But I blame us for not holding them accountable and for not doing the messaging, which takes us back to what we were discussing earlier. Because Mary, what I mean by this is a part of what happens with the media is you also have to, you can pressure the media. I did it with John King on CNN. He always would have these 3 real journalists and then one fucking crazy Republican with the Federalist or something. And I was like, what the fuck? I went back and looked at all of his old shows for like a year and a half. There might have been 1 Democrat once and 25 of these crazies. Guess what? He stopped doing it. I kept tweeting at him. He even responded once and was like, well, he stopped doing it. Now he only has journalists on, and now Abby Phillips too. They only have reporters on. They don't have the crazies. So you can't. But so part of it is recognizing that you've got to push back to make a difference, and you can. Part of it is recognizing that some of this is just the way the media is. I don't mean with the bias. I mean with they go after the shiny penny. And Republicans are very good at making AOC the shiny penny. We're not nearly as good at making Lauren Boebert or Matt Gaetz the shiny penny. And that's what pisses me off is our messaging sucks, I think.
Yeah, and part of that also is the impulse not to give it oxygen. I've never mentioned Boebert or the woman with 3 names. I don't.
Margie 3 names, as we call it.
Yeah, I don't talk about them on Twitter. I don't retweet anything about them because I think, they're a huge problem. but they're not the problem. And I feel the same way about Donald, not that he can't be ignored because he has so much power, but the problem is that the Republican Party not just accepts them, but promotes them. People like Elise Stefanik, who's a fascist from New York, and replaced Liz Cheney as the third most powerful.
Who used to be a fascist.
Well, I mean,
ironically, you know what I mean. Yeah.
Listen, she voted with Donald 99% of the time. Yeah. So lovely of her to realize that democracy matters. But
I'm glad she is. I'm glad she is, though. I'm glad that she is speaking up, but it's ironic because she was the worst of the worst before.
It doesn't wipe away the fact that she got us here, partially.
Yes.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I think people on our side don't, including me, I don't want to talk about these people. I don't. But the media should, if they're going to talk about the stupid dress thing, then why aren't they talking about the fact that this horrible congresswoman from Georgia took a rocket launcher?
Yeah.
And almost took her own eye out, by the way, because she doesn't know
what she's doing, and blew up a car that had socialism painted on it. Speaking of prepubescent idiots, I mean, that if you're talking about one, you should talk about the other. But again, though, that's not good enough because it, as you said, Cliff, it equates them.
Yeah,
correct.
What what's her name is doing is dangerous, and it's a lie. We are not socialists. They can't even define what socialism means, right? She doesn't want to get rid of a socialist agenda. She wants to get rid of childcare and good stuff.
Right.
What Cortez? Ocasio-Cortez, sorry.
Oh, yeah.
Did, whether you liked it or not, it was messaging. It was saying what she was basically, in a very odd context, she was saying what she believes in, with which there's nothing wrong.
And it's not that crazy of an idea either, though.
No, nothing what she's saying is crazy.
You can disagree, but it's not crazy.
But you could also say that, you know what? Wearing that dress to a gala populated with the insanely rich, you know what? That's interesting.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, fair.
But it's not dangerous.
It's not blowing up a car.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
And it's not a lie.
Right.
You might think it's hypocritical. Right. I don't know.
Right.
But you can't say that she's doing anything dangerous or mendacious.
I didn't even think it was hypocritical. I just thought the atmosphere means you're stepping on your message a little bit. But whatever, which way. They're not. And I think there's elements of what you and John are saying that are both true, and we've talked about that. And they're almost like synergistic, which is the media covers these types of things the way they do. And I don't think John was making the point that you need to be calling out Marjorie Taylor Greene, or John even does, or I even do. It's where the Democratic Party organs. Where's it's that their messaging, the DNC, the DCCC. While I love some of what they do, and maybe it's not even them, maybe we should just talk about leadership in Congress or whoever. Why aren't there press conferences weekly on listing the insane things people have said on the other side? Why isn't there constant advertising digitally to reach key groups who want to on the insane things they're saying? These things all happen, and then they go down the memory hole. And nobody even remembers.
And
I just remembered the other day. Right. I just remembered the other day when I was thinking about naming, when somebody was like, oh, Joe Biden has dementia. I'm like, well, did he tell people to drink bleach, or did he? Yep. And it came back to me. I'd forgotten that Donald Trump said we should nuke hurricanes, because our people aren't talking about it. Like, we just let it go, and we're not, and they'll bring up something that we did that's not 1 billionth as bad from years ago and turn it into something. And Cliff, that's what frustrates me.
All of Trump's slurred speech, you could compile that in one video. The point Cliff is getting to, this isn't for Mary, this is for the audience, but is that you sort of have these prepared talking points with proof, and every time somebody brings something up, you bring it up and throw it at them. right? Like Don Jr. Don Jr. should be destroyed. Donnie, as we now are going to call him, should be destroyed with his collusion with Russia. The fact that he was willing to meet with the Russians and said, I love it when the Russians wanted to get involved in our election, that's the end of Donnie. Matt Gaetz, every fucking time they put that man out there, or he puts himself out there, we talk about,
sex
trafficking. Every time Jim Jordan, we talk about the college kids getting raped and him standing by. But you've got like the key points that you bring up every time, and you keep talking and talking and talking. And this is what, mind you, as he said, oh, Biden has dementia. They keep bringing it up, and it starts to sink in. That's the point.
And we don't even bring up the truth, which is if Jim Jordan knew every time he opened his clown mouth at one of these hearings, that's what he was going to hear. That somebody'd say, well, the gentleman from Ohio who ignored what was going on in Ohio State when young men and women were being raped, and then you go to your point. Every time they should, that's my problem.
We're testifying. If I had the opportunity, and again, I said this earlier, I'd never understood this, like why people were so deferential to Donald, even people who knew how dangerous he was. Just call him a loser to his face and see what happens.
Yeah.
I think this. And this is a problem with how we approach pretty much everything. When we talk about the founding fathers, the very first thing we should know about most of them is that they enslaved and tortured other human beings. Yes, they did other things too, but I think that's sort of a defining moment or in a person's life, right?
Yeah.
Whenever we talk about Donald, if they bring up Biden's so-called dementia or whatever, yes, talk about the bleach. But the very first thing anybody should say about Donald John Trump is that he's directly responsible for the deaths of over 700.
He tried to violently overthrow the. Oh, that too. I'm sorry. You're right. COVID. You're right. COVID.
Robert E.
Lee. Yeah. You're right. Right.
No pulling punches. He's a mass murderer. He did it on purpose because he thought it was a winning political strategy. And initially it was because he just couldn't face the fact that he was wrong.
Yeah.
And
then he tried to violently overthrow the government. That was the second.
But the key
is talking point.
And I think this is what John was also saying, is that when you frame something that way initially and bring it up, then when it happens in the future, you've already prepped the media and for people to understand what it is you're talking about. So the classic thing is had we done that, just let me finish this one point.
Yeah, it's okay.
Had we done that to Donald Trump, then it would be natural that right now when we bring it up with DeSantis and Abbott and Kim Reynolds and these other, the one in Lee in Tennessee, these other ghouls that are letting their people die, we would have already prepped them by blaming Trump for all this time. So it would be natural that these guys are responsible too.
Cliff, for example, Kristi Noem in South Dakota, the Republican governor. Well, of course, she's being bad on COVID because she comes from a party that just killed 600,000 Americans. There's your talking point. But this is how you do it. Trump doing all his 9/11 bullshit. Well, of course he didn't go to the official ceremony and he moderated a boxing ring. This is a guy who killed 600,000 people. Of course, 3,000 people is a drop in the bucket to him. And boy, that talking point makes news. I guarantee you that. But you tie everything.
He was happy that day because his building became the tallest one in New York, as he said.
There you go.
One
of the tricks you learn in messaging, especially doing TV, is not only do you have your 2 or 3 talking points, which we've talked about on the show before, but you definitely learn how to turn every fucking conversation to your talking points.
Yeah.
And Democrats, we also don't do it collectively either, though. Like, you might be good, Mary, but we don't get, MSNBC and our newspapers. What newspapers? I was going to say, what news network, really? But we don't get this coordination of everybody together pushing the talking point nonstop that they do on their side.
No, and it is the first problem is it's not easy to do that in a way that feels organic.
Right.
It took me a really long time to learn how to answer the question I wish they'd had asked instead of the question they actually did ask.
Right.
And it's a skill that is difficult to acquire.
Yes.
And it's also something that you get out of practice doing, as I've learned recently. So there's that.
As you did with Meghan.
But much more importantly, if it's not collective, then I go out there and I say quite matter-of-factly that Donald is a mass murderer because he is. I sound like a raving lunatic.
Right.
Meanwhile, the Republican Party in total, en masse, calls us a party. They call us Leninist, Marxist, communist, socialist.
We murder babies.
And then when we randomly say they're fascists, it just makes it sound like it's name calling.
Yeah.
even though we can define the way in which they're fascist, and they don't even know what Marxism, Leninism, socialism, and communism are. So it's
that's exactly right. We don't sort of create that narrative about them. They do it in a fake way about us, and we don't even do it with the truth about them. Right. And so I blame both sides for the failure. Oh, both sides. But I blame both mainstream media because they should do it on their own, and I blame Democratic spokespeople for not doing it and making the media cover it. I don't think there's one side that's bad here. We're all failing. They're all failing.
And it's, if you're not comfortable for whatever reason calling Donald a mass murderer, if you're Jen Psaki or you're a spokesperson for anything, and COVID and the difficulties we're currently having with COVID are brought up, you say, well, the reason we're here is because Donald failed so spectacularly to protect the American people, which is why blah, blah, blah.
Yep, exactly.
It's not that fucking hard. Sorry, it's not that hard.
No, please say it.
I got Mary swearing now. Yes.
Yeah, we did.
How do we not swear?
Oh, I know. These times we have to.
I mean, sometimes thank goodness that, the media hits are like 6 minutes. I don't know that I could go longer than that without swearing.
See, that should have been your book, The Fucking Reckoning. Right? Our nation's fucking trauma and the finding a fucking way to heal.
These fucking fucks and the way
That's the Mary Trump I know.
Us.
Okay, I have to ask you, I know we've been going long here, so thank you, but I've got to ask you, it was from our first episode with you, but you made me laugh so hard. Can you tell the story again about when you first met Melania at the White House?
Oh, no, it was at Donald's apartment in Trump Tower.
Oh, I thought it was the White House. Okay, but when he introduced you to her and gave his little story.
So this was when, I think it was 1998 or something. It was Father's Day. Actually, no.
And none of his kids were around.
Exactly.
I think it was the Father's Day right before my grandfather died. And his Alzheimer's was very bad. So instead of going out to Peter Luger's, which is what we usually did, Donald had it at his apartment. And I had gotten it adept over the years, because by then I was in my early 30s, at arriving after everybody else or arriving with other people.
Right.
And I totally miscalculated. I get there, I'm the first person there.
Was this the gold vomit apartment? Or
yes.
Oh my God, you've been in that place?
Yes.
Oh God. Is it just as horrible as it looks? I'm assuming.
The Saddam Hussein palace?
It's
like Liberace's Saddam Hussein, yeah.
It's like Liberace threw up on Versailles or something.
Yeah.
Quite,
oh God.
Quite horrible. Right. But anyway.
So you get there early. Yeah.
I blame my grandmother. My grandmother had hideous taste as well. But
not that beehive though. That was cool. Sorry. Go ahead.
Anyway, I'm getting flashbacks. So it's just Donald and Melania. Like, oh my God. So we're sitting in this marble foyer with these very uncomfortable chairs and love seats. And I'd never met her before. And she just nods and smiles. And Donald starts telling her how, oh yeah, I hired Mary to write my second book, I think it was, and it didn't end up. She didn't end up writing it, but she worked with me for a while, and I really helped her out because she was basically in the gutter at that point, and she was doing well, and she was doing drugs, and I'm like, no. I've never taken drugs in my life. Can you please not rewrite my history? And also just it was taking responsibility for
your whole existence,
getting out of the gutter,
for saving you.
And, yes,
from Skid Row. Yeah.
The whole time, Melania is just polite with this polite, very bored look on, polite smile, bored look on her face. So he says, "Yeah, oh yeah, she was doing drugs," and she sits up and she says, "Really?" And it's the only word I ever heard her say. So
really,
we got very close.
But did you at least say no?
Of course. That's the problem. Other people don't do that with him.
Just say no.
Let him ramble on and tell you his preferred narrative, usually because it makes him look good. Like the fact he didn't care if I did drugs or not.
Yeah.
But if I had been a drug addict living on the streets and he'd plucked me out of that horror, it makes
he saved you
seem right.
And he would have never done that. If you were a drug addict on the street, he wouldn't have touched you, I would think.
Well, I'm not entirely sure I would have been able to write a book at that point.
No, but you know what I mean, though. He would never say, my cousin Mary or my niece Mary, I need to save her. Oh.
No.
I mean,
he didn't even want to pay.
He's the hero of every narrative.
Did he ever pay you or no?
It's a long story.
Oh, okay. I mean, do you think when he tells stuff like that, because he's a fabulist, but do you think he actually believes the lies he tells?
It depends. He knew when he was telling that lie, he knew he was telling that lie.
Oh, okay.
He had this smile on his face, like, I know what I'm doing.
Yeah. And that was before she was a hooker. I mean, like, just keep going. It's like...
But, lies that speak directly to his sense of himself, like lies that he tells that protect him from the truth about who he is. I think he does come to believe them. I'm pretty sure at this point he believes that the election was stolen from him because that narrative protects him from the fact that he's a huge loser.
Correct. And he can't accept that, and there's no accepting that.
No, that's a narcissistic injury that would crush a person like him.
Well, you mentioned loser was like the worst thing you could be in your family.
Yep, it was.
Well, you can tell. I mean, he uses that word all the time. It's projection, pure projection. I mean,
everything he does is projection, and we're at the point now where everything the Republican Party does is projection.
Yeah,
right. His dog thing too. I'm sorry, but I know we're going to keep going here. But he always uses this weird, beat him like a dog. He uses this weird language that Americans don't.
Yeah, he treated her like a dog, or it sounds like something like from the Middle East that you hear sometimes.
He doesn't understand animals. Apparently, he doesn't understand how they work or how people feel about them. He doesn't seem to understand like the only people
who beats a dog
hate animals are serial killers.
Yeah, exactly. Who beats a dog?
Well, because let's be honest, for animals, you have unconditional love for your pets, right? I mean, you're cleaning up after them, you're feeding them, and you're doing all of it because we've got cats. I've gone into it. We love our pets. They're like because you love them. But if you're a person who literally doesn't understand anything but transactional and not even really love, but transactional I guess I would call it, you like somebody because of what they can do for you, how would you understand a cat or a dog or whatever? You couldn't possibly.
Well, you can, as long as love, like actual love, is meaningless to you.
Right.
Yep.
Which obviously it is, because my grandfather destroyed Donald when he was like 2.
Actually, I guess that kind of makes sense then with also what we said about his feeling towards pets overall. I mean, pets are about love. There's no, unless it's literally a
and responsibility.
And responsibility,
right?
Yeah.
And if you love them enough, you actually enjoy doing some of the stuff you do for them.
But if love doesn't matter to you,
because the look on their face when you feed them, or whatever it is, you want them to be happy.
But if you don't, but if love doesn't matter, no, it is ironic though, because love may not matter to him, but like obedience and worship. God, you want somebody to worship you? Get a freaking dog, Donald. I mean,
it's like almost like work.
Okay, fair enough.
He thinks it should be immediate and uncompromising and unconditional.
Like Ivanka.
Yes. Somehow I think the dogs would even figure him out and not love him.
Dogs are smart that way.
They really are. And they can tell if you like them or not.
Right. And Ivanka may know how to do that, but don't for a second think she won't throw him under the bus at the first opportunity if she thinks it's necessary.
I hope to God that happens.
I hope she and Kushner end up turning state's evidence.
That's the
on
thing.
him. It would be the most fun thing to see.
I want to see either him turn on the kids or the kids turn on him, or Melania.
Yeah, I mean, he would. Like, that would be fun, but there's no reason for it to happen because he's the big fish.
Right.
They don't ask the big fish to turn on the little fish.
No, right. They turn on him, and hopefully, though, I still want them to go to prison.
No. But if they were, but think about this, Cliff. If they were to get Don Jr. on something, all of a sudden Don Jr. would be Donnie who.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Oh, of course.
He was a piece of crap. I always knew. I never trusted him. I never let him into any meetings. So he would turn in that regard.
I mean, it's true. Like I did only bring coffee to people in my family. So that is true. That That was my only relationship with Donald was to bring him coffee. That's what he does to people. Oh yeah, the coffee boy. He will do that with his own children. He actually thinks that by diminishing people's roles, that it renders them powerless somehow. He tried. I was unloved. My grandparents hated me. Okay, that makes you sound good. But he thinks that that's all it takes to neuter you, essentially.
Yeah. Ratings are terrible. Terrible ratings. He's making a joke about how he would say your ratings are terrible because that's the other thing he thinks he can really diminish you with.
Right, exactly. So yeah, he'll do the same thing with his children when the time comes.
Why is he so good at this? Why is he? He seems like such a buffoon that it surprises me that he's such a good grifter. But like with business meetings, he clearly did this with business. He did it with politics. How does he? And I'm sorry, I don't mean to keep dragging you on, but this is interesting. But he's really good at
forever, dude.
He's really good at creating this mass psychosis and tricking and fooling people. When a lot of us look at him and go, "Oh my God, he's a scumbag." The guy's just like trash.
Well, first of all, he's had a lot of support. If you go into negotiation, and he didn't negotiate. Obviously, as we've learned, he's terrible at it. Yeah. His people negotiated. He comes to the final meeting. He changes the terms of the deal, has a temper tantrum, and then threatens the other team with lawsuits and bankruptcy.
Right.
He gets his way because he has the temper tantrum, and nobody's going to stop him because he's supported by banks that, for whatever reason, threw hundreds of millions of dollars at him. So he could sue you into oblivion. The other thing is that there are some people who want to be fooled.
Right.
There are some people, and the Republican Party has done a good job of training people to vote against their own self-interest in order to have their white privilege. And the other thing is it's a mistake to, and I did this for a long time. What is it? What are they seeing that I don't see?
Right.
They're not seeing anything that I don't see. But it turns out that they value the things in him I revile. They love his cruelty. They love his willingness to lie all the time. They love the fact that he gets away with everything. And I think the thing they most love about him is the fact that despite his serial failures, despite the fact that he's such an incredible loser, he's still been allowed to succeed. And that's something they want for them.
It applies to some of their own lives. John, I mean, the simple answer is, and this is more in Mary's area than mine, psychology, whatever, but I've always thought that explains so much about politics in our culture. It's not that Donald Trump is so good at it. It's that people are so bad at it and will hear anything you want to tell them, suspend disbelief. The slightest notion is when you divide them. I mean, how does Joel Osteen have 4 airplanes and a compound, and these people are still coming who are poor as hell? He won't let people into his place when the area is flooding, but they'll still go and give him all of their money. I mean, Trump's no different. He's no different.
He doesn't have to pay taxes on it.
He doesn't have to pay taxes. He's no different. I mean, think about these mega church preachers. Think about your Huey Longs and Father Coughlins and people in the past in our history. When you get somebody who has a little bit of charisma, is a sociopath, and has no shame, this is what you get. And now it's not just the guy on the street corner or the guy with the bullhorn or the guy locally. Now they can do it. They can make it go worldwide with cable and with the internet and with everything. It's not that, I hate to say it, it's not that Trump is uniquely so good. It's that we are uniquely bad as humans.
Yeah.
But again, it's not an individual. Joel Osteen, Donald Trump, they're allowed to do what they do. They're supported by the tax code, for God's sakes.
Yep.
Donald has been used and elevated by people his whole life, starting with my grandfather and going through, the New York political machine and the New York media. And what's his name, Mark Burnett, who should be in prison for the rest of his life. And then the Republican Party, it's this, he by himself, do a little thought experiment. Imagine you drop Donald in Astoria, Queens, and you give him enough money to rent a studio apartment and eat. And in a month, he needs to get a job and start supporting himself. Could he do it? No.
Wait.
No. He cannot exist outside of that bubble. And yet he's the head of the Republican Party.
Yeah.
And could theoretically be president again.
Oh, it's not theoretical.
Well, I mean, if he runs, which I think he will.
Yes, he can pull a Grover Cleveland. Yeah.
What would he be like second term? Shit, I was going to ask you this. I hate to have this be at the end, but having gone through what he did the 4 years and winning again, which I think, so not only does he know how to wield the power, he knows he got away with it, and he knows that he finally, like, he's not a loser anymore. He won if he wins in 2024. What will he be like as president?
Well, one, he only runs if he knows he can't lose. In other words, if Georgia, Arizona, and Pennsylvania, for example, are gerrymandered to not gerrymandered because that wouldn't matter. If enough of the right kinds of votes are suppressed that he knows that he can get those, what was it, like fewer than 35,000 votes that he didn't get last. I know, it's just horrifying. He'll first of all, he doesn't wield the power. Mitch McConnell wields the power. The people in his cabinet wield the power, and he will continue to pick. Don't expect Bill Barr to be back. Expect all of those hideous people to be back. I think he spends that. First of all, American democracy is over if that happens. And he will spend those 4 years, or as many of them as he's alive, seeking vengeance. And people like me will probably have to go into hiding. And I'm actually not kidding. It's not funny because it's actually true.
Yeah.
No, you're right. I mean, for all we know, we might have to, John, and we're not even close to the threat that Mary is. But I mean, I swear anybody who said something bad about any of these people publicly.
There's a list,
Meghan
no
McCain.
doubt. They're so petty. There's absolutely, their version of the enemies list.
Oh, God, yes. But that's what worries me is now he knows how to do it. He knows he got away with all that crap he did last time. Not just the kleptocracy, but just the illegality of everything and the willingness to, overturn our government, the willingness to use violence. God.
That's why the problem is the Republican Party, because if we lose the House or the Senate in 2022, it's also over.
Yep. You can't do this stuff without them. So.
Right.
So imagine 2020. You know what? I don't want to imagine 2022. We need to fight. We need to fight. Don't give up. Take a break if you need to. But, we need to keep our eyes open and be really blunt about what's going on and what the threats we're facing. And then I have to go.
That's okay. Good.
There you go.
Mary Trump's new book, The Fucking Reckoning, Our Nation's Fucking Trauma and Finding a Fucking Way to Heal. No, take out the fucking, and that's the book, The Reckoning. Google it.
The paperback will be called that.
Okay, yeah, exactly. I think, and actually that would be my review.
The spoken word version, she'll definitely include all the fucks.
And her earlier book, though, that was a huge book, Too Much and Never Enough, about what I guess your analysis of Trump himself as a person, as a human being, as a psyche.
Yeah, how he came to be.
Yep. So that I was just reading the reviews again of that. People loved that book especially. So hopefully these reviews are just as good. This book is out now?
Yep, it's been out for about a month.
Okay, good. So people can find it on. I did see it on Amazon and obviously wherever else one likes to buy books.
Yeah, although the rollout got kind of complicated by Afghanistan and then a hurricane and all sorts of stuff. But so it's nice to have the opportunity to talk about it and because I do think it's relevant to what's going on now.
Yep.
Although I was on Lawrence O'Donnell's show last night and they showed the cover of my first book. I'm like, that book doesn't need any help.
Which you mean Too Much and Never Enough, or which?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like that book did just fine.
Yeah, this one.
The Reckoning.
Okay, well,
The
they
Reckoning.
don't look anything alike. And why show us Donald's face, please?
All right. Well, thank you, Mary, for joining us. That was great. You've been crazy generous, so thank you.
No, it was great.
Thanks so much.
It's good to see you guys.
Good to see you. Let's
Stay safe.
Keep fighting. Stay safe.
You too.